Alright, real quick, time for the first Waste 'em devlog. As you can see, room, whatever. Waste 'em essentially is just another waste game, you know, that's what it is. It's obvious, Hollow Waste, Greeds in the Waste. Difference here is that Waste 'em is the focal point, the main thing I'm working on, versus Hollow Waste and Greeds in the Waste, where, yeah, sure, they were technically the thing I was primarily working on at the time, but Hollow Waste took literally a week to make because that was the point of the game. It was just a simple game to make before Halloween, to celebrate Halloween. Literally started like a week and a half before Halloween, got it done the Monday before Halloween, so the game was done in like a week. Greeds in the Waste was meant to be the same thing for Christmas. I started early and then delayed it months. It's out now, but whatever. So we'll go into stage 1. As you can see, gun functions the exact same way as it did in Hollow Waste, essentially. Over here's the growth. You shoot it. It takes 3 shots, unlike in Hollow Waste where it took like 5. Here's the Hideous, which runs faster than you do, and takes 1 shot. And those things are terrible. This here's the Croco. It takes 5 shots, and it moves faster than a growth. Essentially, this is replacing the melee raiders from Hollow Waste and Greeds in the Waste, because they're not visually interesting enough to exist, so they don't exist. The shooting raiders still do, but the melee raiders do not. I'm doing this video now instead of earlier because Chapter 1, from a completely structural standpoint, is complete. Now, the stabby thing, I'll go over that more once we get into Stage 2. You're supposed to unlock it after beating Stage 1. I'll go more into detail about that once we get to Stage 2, though, because that's where you're supposed to use it. Anyway, every stage in this game, or at least every one so far, ends in a mini-boss fight. As you can see, it doesn't have a boss health bar at the bottom, like the bosses in Hollow Waste or Greeds in the Waste did, because it's not a main boss. Think in Hollow Waste took about 100 shots to kill. This thing takes 30. The stab does 3 damage, so you could kill it in 10 hits if you were just stabbing. But once you beat Stage 1, you get the stab, but before that happens, a cutscene plays. Here is said cutscene. I'm not gonna read this, you can do it yourself, because I don't care. I hate the dialogue that I write, because it's god-awful. And I'm not proud of it. But the game needs a story. It doesn't, but it does. It doesn't need a story, but it does. Here we have Satch. Satch will say words to you every time you beat a level, so if you go in here after beating Stage 1, you click on him, and he says that. I'll click on it again after it disappears to give you time to read it. There you go. As you can see, if I enter Stage 2, my health in the top left resets, because every time you enter a brand new stage, your health resets. Here we have the Raider. You shoot it, and it dies. It takes 5 hits, and it is the only moving enemy currently with projectiles that isn't a boss or mini-boss. Neat. I'm going to wait for one to fire on me, towards me, so I can stab the bullet, because if you stab projectiles, they disappear. Now that only applies to smaller projectiles. I'll get the larger projectiles that does not apply to. Okay, as you can see, it works for the rad shooters one too. I don't even think I explained the flesh wall there, but I don't think I need to. Heck, I don't even remember seeing the flesh wall. I know it exists on that stage, at least I'm pretty sure it does, but I literally do not even remember looking at the thing in the previous stage. I mean, not previous stage, previous room of this stage. But yeah, that's the flesh wall. It takes less shots it takes the same amount of shots to kill in this game as it did in Hollow Waste, which is 10. But you can stab it now, so yeah. It essentially is literally the only enemy that is unchanged. The only thing that's changed is the fact that you can stab it now. That's it. But that's only because the stab didn't exist in Hollow Waste. If we go down here, we encounter the second mini-boss, Ditch, who has a homing missile launcher thing. Well, I guess an RPG or whatever you want to call it, but it shoots that projectile. I need to reanimate Ditch a little bit to give him better animations, and I need to give him and Vefrog, the other mini-boss, you know, any sort of death animation. These bullets here need some sort of collision animation when they hit a wall. And he needs some sort of smoke effects out of his barrel, but whatever. And no, you cannot stab those to get rid of them. There's no cutscene for beating this stage yet, but as you can see, we get Ditch's hood. It's purely cosmetic, and I actually put this on Zinx, which is the name of the player in this game. I put it on Zinx first, and then thought, why the frick would he have that if he's supposed to be a clanker? Because he's supposed to be a clanker from Hollow Waste. Why the frick would he have that? So I gave it to another character, which is Ditch, and decided, hey, Ditch will die, and then you can get it. And that's how that works. Originally, Ditch was supposed to be killed by a boss called Mass. He was supposed to get ripped in half by him, but I cut Mass because I hated it, and decided to make Ditch a mini-boss. Originally, you weren't even supposed to fight Ditch. Anyway, here's Satch's line of dialogue, which essentially tells you to go to the Abstracta area, which is where Chapter 2 takes place, to meet with their General Bachnier. Yeah, that's set up for Chapter 2. Unfortunately, the boss of not unfortunately, that's the wrong word, but funnily enough, the boss of Chapter 1, which as you can see is represented by the skull symbol, which is essentially the same thing that represented the bosses in Hollow Waste and Get W. That was left of the health bar in those games, and that's where the boss's name was. It was in between the jaws of the skull. That doesn't apply in this game, but whatever. Anyway, so the boss has literally nothing to do with any of the plot. I just shoved a boss in here because I didn't like Mass. Mass fit the plot, but I didn't like him. So I shoved a new thing in here because I thought it would be funny. And it is. I really like this new boss that I came up with. Here we have Crocs. And yes, every boss will have a unique theme. And Croc's theme is playing right now. I've actually already uploaded his track, but he has 3 attacks as of now. I might add 2 more later. I have 2 more planned, but I might add them. He does this like shotgun shot where the projectile's going in a random direction. He shoots a big jaw projectile, and then he does this spinny rapid fire thing. And he takes 100 shots to kill, like Think from Hollow Waste. As you can see, the skull symbol's down there, like it always is. The name is in a different position though, which is whatever. It's not a good or bad thing. As you can see, I'm using the improved health bar system from Knights, as opposed to the health bar system from the original. Essentially, what that means is that the health bars have borders now. That's literally the only difference. Health bars have borders now, and the back thing, like the back gray thing on the health bar. That's literally the only difference between Knights health bars and old Waste health bars. Nothing happens when you beat Crocs here. You can't break the jaw with the stab, by the way, which I feel like that should be pretty obvious. And if you try to do that, it's your fault for getting hit. I don't know why you would try that when it's literally bigger than the player, but whatever. So I need to add a cutscene before you fight Crocs, a cutscene afterwards, a cutscene after you beat Ditch, and maybe a room or 2 before you fight Crocs as well. Maybe 1 room that introduces a new enemy, the Flesh Hound, because the Flesh Hound doesn't really fit in Chapter 2. I'm fine with enemies from Chapter 1 being in Chapter 2, it's just that I want to introduce them in the chapter they fit in first, if that makes sense. I'm fine with out-of-place enemies showing up later, it's just I want them to fit in when they're introduced. So I might add a room with a Flesh Hound before Crocs, who knows. We'll see. But yeah, that's what we have so far. I still need to texture his room. As you can see, the walls don't have textures. But yeah, that's what we have with Wasteland so far. And I honestly think that this might be my best work yet. Crocs is probably the best boss I've added yet in anything. But whatever.